So as I said, I'm over here from Ireland, but in Ireland, I was a qualified lawyer before I started stand-up comedy. And unfortunately in Ireland we call it solicitor, which means something entirely different over here. Now thank you those who know what a solicitor is. But before I basically left law and I went off to do stand-up comedy about 2 years ago. And I'm writing a show about that, and it's called What the Hell Was I Thinking? Which is being written by my mother. But people have two reactions. They have two distinct reactions to when I tell them this. Because audiences sometimes go, ooh, and there's two reactions. The first reaction, it goes a little bit, it's a bit like this. It's like, you were a lawyer? You went to law school? You did the bar exam? You had a fantastic job with a great wage and you gave it up for comedy? That's amazing! That's brilliant! Oh my god! And that's the first reaction. This is the second reaction. You were a lawyer. You went to law school, you did the bar exam, you went to college, you passed the law exam. You had a good job with lots of money and security. You gave it up to do stand-up comedy? Jesus, oh my god, that's brilliant. Jesus, that's absolutely amazing. And that's, well, thankfully my family aren't here. So that doesn't apply as much. And you have to understand, in Ireland, the law, the legal law school is all a little bit different. We learn different things, like, for instance, we learned land law, or keep the English out of my fucking land law, as we like to call it. We learned, it was so boring, we learned about things like mortgages, for God's sake. Mortgage, of course, derived from the Latin word morte, meaning death, and age, meaning eternal. And then we went on and we learned about family law and divorce, which only came to Ireland in 1996. There was once a girl from Iran in an audience who laughed at how backward we were. She's still here, thank you. And we learned in family law about marriage. Marriage, of course, derived from the Latin word marriage, meaning death. And we learned about criminal law. We learned about criminal law in Ireland, which is very easy, because, of course, in Ireland, everyone is either guilty or they feel guilty about something. It's quite simple. And when I was doing criminal law, I was asked to go up to Dublin. I was studying down in Cork, and I was asked to go to Dublin to do an interview of Sister Helen Prejean, who was the source of Dead Man Walking. Do you know Dead Man Walking?
Yeah.
Now, like anyone here, I was incredibly nervous because I had seen the film Dead Man Walking. And like any red-blooded male, I find Susan Sarandon incredibly attractive. And my worry was that Sister Helen Prejean would resemble Susan Sarandon. And for me to be attracted to a nun would end up with years of therapy and a fucking eternity in hell. But I met her, and she was a lovely, she's a tiny woman. She wasn't as small as Neil, but she was a tiny woman. And she was brilliant. And she said to me, Keith, you're training to be a lawyer, you have to go to America. Go to New York, there's a thing called the Innocence Project. And I found out about this thing called the Innocence Project. It's based in New York. It's amazing. It was, this is a few years ago now. And it was run by this guy, Barry Sheck, and it was all about, he would get sort of evidence from cases from 20 years ago, and he would free people who were on death row and in prison. And Sister Prejean was amazing. She was inspirational. She said, Keith, go to New York, help this man out. And I was like, fucking, you're a tiny nun, of course I'll do what you tell me, because you'll beat me otherwise. And I wrote to the Innocence Project, and I just wrote to them and I said, look, I'd love to come over, and I'm an Irish student. And they were like, oh, you're the Irish guy. Well, that sounds quite charming, we might take you on. I took that one sentence from an email and I said, fuck it, I'm going to New York. And I turned up at the office of the Innocence Project, right? And I walked in the door on the first day and people were throwing forks on the ground and everything. And I walked in the door and I sat down. Now I didn't realise, I sat down, I thought I'd sneak in and I just charm my way in, I charm my way in. And I sat down. I didn't realise, of course, the Innocence Project was based in the Cardozo Law School, which was a Jewish law school. So I stuck out like a fucking sore thumb, with like an Irish Catholic just written all over me. And I sat down at the main desk in the boardroom where everyone was sitting around. This was a summer internship they brought me in for. And they hadn't really brought me in, I was trying to squeeze my way in. And there was 12 people around the table, and Barry Sheck walks in, storms in, and everyone has to introduce themselves. So everyone introduces, they're like, hi, I'm X from Columbia, hi, I'm from Yale, hi, I'm from Harvard, hi, I'm from Columbia, how are you? I'm Keith from Cork. And everyone at the table just looked at me, and somebody said, is that Ivy League? And I said, well, there's ivy on the walls. That's about it. And Barry said, you have to understand, is a man who was on the Louise Woodward trial, the Menendez brothers, and the Ochi Simpson trial as the forensics lawyer. This man was fucking, and he's looking at me in his room, going, who are you? And I was like, I'm Keith from Cork. And then he goes, and what are you doing here? And I blanked. I was like, this man has interrogated people on the witness stand, he has torn them apart, and I'm sitting in his office going, and he said the most brilliant thing I have ever heard. He then said, did Maureen send you? And I thought to myself, you know what? Technically, I know several Maureens. And I thought to myself, one of my Maureens is my aunt, who when I told her about my plan said, you should call him. So I was able to say to Barry Sheck, you know what? Maureen didn't, send me, but she told me I should call you and come here and do this. And he left the room and went outside, and everyone's just looking at me, and he comes back 5 minutes later, and he has a talk with the directors outside, and it turns out, because all the work is done on a telephone, that they reckon an Irish accent is like a giant nuclear fucking weapon on a telephone to get things done. So I was like, in. And everyone was fascinated with me, and everyone was brilliant. They were brilliant minds, except for the wanker sitting next to me, who was from Harvard. Everyone was brilliant except this guy, who I will call Tommy because he looked like he'd stepped out of a Tommy Hilfiger ad. I was willing to call him Calvin or Hugo or Dolce & Gabbana. Anything. And he sat next to me, and I started chatting, and the Innocence Project was his second choice. And I said, what the fuck was your first choice? And he said, a sports agent. And I said, you had me at hello. He didn't get it! He didn't fucking get it! So I said to him, help me to help you out of the building. So I sit there and they accept me, and for the next 6 weeks I work on the most amazing cases, gathering evidence, trying to help these people, and I learned so much about the American legal system, it's unbelievable. And 2 of the clients we had to work on were on death row, and I didn't realise, I had known the death penalty in America. I couldn't believe you still had it. You're a civilized fucking country. You're civilized. I know this. The streets are paved with splendor. That's civilized. You know what I mean? China, Iran, Syria, Pakistan, Thailand, all these other places with the death penalty, they fucking have sugar. They don't have artificial sweetener. They're not civilized. America is a civilized place. And the main argument for, of course, the death penalty is that it is a deterrent. It deters crime. Right, let me explain 2 things to you, right? First thing, in the 70s, Canada in 1974 got rid of the death penalty, and the next year, violent crime went down. Now, unfortunately, baby seal beating and clubbing went up. So they had to redirect their anger somewhere. The second thing, the people who commit the violent crimes for which death penalty is relevant, they're either 2 things. They're either evil or they're on fucking crack or drugs. If you're evil, it doesn't matter. Nothing will deter you. If you're on crack or drugs, the only thing that will deter you from committing a crime is if you're wandering around somewhere about to commit a crime and you see a pink elephant wandering past you, because then you'll think, Jesus Christ, I've done too much crack, cocaine, I'm not doing any more, I'm giving up crime, that's the end of it. So what we need to do is take all the money spent on the electric fucking chair and all that bullshit, put it into painting elephants pink, send them with this crack, fucking crack cocaine. Crack addicts will see pink elephants, they won't commit crime, there won't be any criminal death penalty, and that's what I say about it. I do love your country, but you could get rid of that. That'd be nice. That'd be great. So after that rant, thank you for listening. Is everyone still with me? Yes! Excellent. I'm just wondering, is there any Republicans going and going to shoot me in the head?